Welcome back to the Explainer, everyone. Okay, if you're staring down an upcoming exam on the Right to Information Act, or, maybe you just need to master its legal frameworks for your day-to-day professional life, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're building the ultimate exam review guide. We're going to dive into a highly specific, totally interactive way to conquer one of the most notoriously dense parts of the Rti Act of 2005. We're going to see exactly how to lock this information into your brain without having to frantically review your notes 5 minutes before the test. Let's see just how incredibly efficient we can make this studying process.
Okay, let's dive into this. We kind of need to address the elephant in the room first. If you've ever actually looked at Section 4, Subsection 1, Clause B of the Rti Act, you already know it's an absolute beast. I mean, it lists 15 separate legal obligations that public authorities have to proactively publish. 15. Trying to cram 15 distinct, super dry administrative duties into your short-term memory the night before an exam? Yeah, that's just a recipe for massive stress and, let's be honest, completely blanking out the second the timer starts. But what if you didn't have to rely on sheer repetition? What if there was a way to just bypass rote memorization entirely? Well, let's look at a pretty clever solution.
Take a second to really process this bizarre sentence. In fact, let's read it slowly and just let the sheer weirdness of it sink in. PIO organized board documents. On the board was written Pewsbread for directory office. It sounds like absolute nonsense, right? Well, we are going to embrace that nonsense today because this strange little story happens to be an absolute cheat code. This single sentence literally contains the DNA for all 15 of those legal obligations.
So, to make this stick permanently, we're going to use a really powerful psychological trick called cognitive chunking. Instead of asking our brains to somehow hold on to 15 completely separate pieces of information, we're just breaking our master sentence down into 3 highly visual, easily digestible scenes. We're essentially building a mini memory palace right here, right now. Step 1 is going to be the action of our main character. Step 2 is going to be a very, very weird sign. And Step 3 will be our final destination. If we can just visualize these 3 simple steps, boom, we've mastered Section 4.
Now, what's really interesting about this first scene is how it takes a totally abstract law and makes it physical. I want you to literally picture this in your mind's eye right now. Imagine a super stressed out public information officer, a PIO, right? They're in this dusty room, frantically shuffling through huge stacks of paper, sweating, just desperately trying to get everything in order. They are quite literally a PIO organizing board documents. Really try to fix that specific image in your head.
All right, let's connect our first story elements directly to those dry legal obligations. Our stressed-out PIO perfectly stands for the obligation to publish the details of public information officers. The fact that he organized them, well, that reminds us of the organization, functions, and duties. He's organizing board documents, which translates right over to boards, councils, and committees. And finally, the documents themselves stand for the categories of documents held. See? Just like that, from one simple mental image of a guy sorting papers, we've naturally mapped out 4 really complex legal clauses.
Okay, let's move right along to Scene 2 of our memory palace. Our PIO looks up from his organized documents, and there, written out on a large board, is a sign. And the sign says, Pewsbread. P-U-S-E, bread. B-R-E-A-D. Yeah, I know, it's super weird. But you know what? That is exactly why it works. The human brain naturally discards boring, expected information, but it completely latches onto anomalies. The funny, nonsensical phrase Pewsbread contrasts so sharply with the ultra-serious duties of a public authority that your brain simply refuses to forget it.
Let's walk methodically through the first half of this weird sign. Pews. Actually try pronouncing what each specific letter stands for out loud with me as we go, just to actively lock it in. The P stands for powers and duties of officers. The U is the requirement to update information every year. The S stands for salary of officers and employees. And the E stands for electronic information, meaning data that has to be available in an electronic format. Pews, powers, update salary, electronic. Boom. That's 4 more obligations securely filed away in your brain.
So, the crucial point here is how this technique spells out incredibly complex administrative duties using just simple, everyday letters. Let's finish up the sign and decode bread. B is for budget details allocated to agencies, R is for the rules, regulations, and manuals used by employees, E is for the execution of subsidy programs, A stands for authorizations, permits, and concessions granted, and finally D is for the decision-making procedure followed. Budget, rules, execution, authorizations, decision-making. Bread. Guys, we just memorized 5 of the absolute hardest clauses in the entire section without even breaking a sweat.
Now let's set the final scene of our mental movie. We have our frantic organizing PIO, and we have our super weird Pew's bread sign. But where is all this actually happening? Like, what's the destination? Well, the mnemonic tells us the sign was written for directory office. I want you to picture a very specific, heavy wooden office door at the very end of a long hallway, and it has this shiny brass plaque on it that clearly reads Directory Office. Let's bring this memory palace home. We are decoding the final 2 obligations of Section 41B right now. Directory maps absolutely perfectly to the legal requirement to publish a directory of officers and employees. And office? Well, that directly maps to the requirement to publish the facilities available to citizens for obtaining information, like, say, a library or a reading room located in an office. It's actually kind of amazing how naturally the words directory and office align with the real-world administrative requirements of the Rti Act. All right, let's try a really quick active recall session here. Say this out loud with me. PIO organized board documents. On the board was written Pew spread for directory office. Let's actually say it one more time. PIO organized board documents. On the board was written Pew spread for directory office. Notice how you aren't just reciting a weird random sentence anymore. You now fully comprehend the immense weight of the legal requirements sitting behind every single word and letter. Let's go ahead and test that short-term memory. Here are the first 8 obligations. Look at them. From the details of the PIOs, through the organization, the boards, the documents, all the way through the powers, updates, salaries, and electronic data of Pews. Notice how easily your eyes just glide right over these bullet points now? Your brain is already visualizing that stressed-out PIO and the first half of that bizarre sign without even needing to look at a cheat sheet. And this brilliantly illustrates the true power of this technique. Here we have the final 7 obligations. The bread, budgets, rules, execution, authorizations, and decision-making, leading straight into the directory and the office facilities. I mean, really, just look at this list. A few minutes ago, this was a totally intimidating wall of legal text, and now it's literally just a funny little story about a guy organizing paperwork. The pure efficiency of this method is what makes it so exciting. We've navigated one of the most complex legal sections in absolute record time. Just think about the painful, completely inefficient before state. You know exactly what I mean. Traditional studying, rote memorization, just staring at 15 dry facts until your eyes literally blur, desperately hoping they magically stick. Now contrast that with the powerful afterstate we've just achieved together. Mnemonic chunking, recalling one beautifully strange story. This right here is why focused learning works. By spending just a few minutes with this explainer to structure the information visually and narratively, we've successfully bypassed what could have easily been hours of frustrating, ineffective studying. So, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to really cement this into your long-term memory. When you're sitting in that exam hall and you turn the page to see a massive high-point question demanding that you list all the obligations of a public authority under Section 41B of the Rti Act, exactly what kind of bread are you going to remember? Take a deep breath, smile, picture that busy PIO, and go ace that exam. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and until next time, keep learning efficiently.